Welcome,
Salem,
everybody.
Massachusetts.
I know you
Look at
can't have a
that.
program without Salem, Massachusetts, right?
Red and witchy in the house. I love that.
So, welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane. I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library in Massachusetts. And this is the last session of Haunted Experiences with Jeff DePaoli. And it has been an amazing year of talking about haunted places all around the country with some specific ones in New England. So, if you want to see any of our programs from this year, they're on our YouTube channel. But before we really get started, I want to say thank you to Jeff for doing this because he has brought amazing people here. And then I want to thank the Friends of the Ashland Public Library for supporting all of our programs. And again, to Jeff for letting us share this program with other libraries. Libraries working together, make magic, blah, blah. You know, you've been here all year. So I'm going to say that Jeff, who hosts that Halloween podcast, is going out with a bang today. So I'm going to let him introduce Amy, and you all are going to be amazed and maybe a little terrified. So welcome, Jeff. Welcome, Amy. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. Amy, I'm so thrilled you decided to join me for this discussion about some more 13th floor haunted experiences. This time, we're getting into the spooky Christmas mood. But before we do anything, let's just start with a quick little teaser video, shall we? Because that's always a fun way to start things. Let's go. Beautiful. Now, you guys did that this past weekend. How'd it go?
Very successful. There's people all over the country who want to come out and experience a scary Christmas attraction. So we hosted Krampus, the Fright Before Christmas, at 7 of 13th Floor Entertainment Group's locations across the country. Can I tell you where we had it, Jeff?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So we hosted Krampus at 13th Floor Denver, 13th Floor Chicago, 13th Floor in Jacksonville, Florida, 13th Floor in Houston, Texas, the House of Torment in Austin, Texas, Nashville Nightmare, and New Orleans Nightmare. So all of these locations belong to 13th Floor Entertainment Group, and collectively, we're scaring people for the holiday seasons at Krampus. So we had a very successful weekend. Lots of people came out, some of our biggest fans, and some folks who were new to 13th Floor's location. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of screams, a lot of memories were made last weekend.
I love it. And Amy, you are a regional manager for 13th Floor Entertainment Group. And let's just start really kind of big picture here for folks who might have never heard of 13th Floor Entertainment Group. What is it y'all do?
Great. So 13th Floor Entertainment Group is a national entertainment company. We build, produce, and operate events across the country, focusing in Halloween events. We operate in over 15 states. So we have predominantly haunted houses, but also Halloween festivals and family-friendly Halloween events. We also have axe throwing, escape games, and we have an immersive art space called Otherworld in Philadelphia. So we've been bringing Halloween across the country for over a decade now, and we're excited not only to operate in the Halloween season, but we also have off-season events outside of Halloween, one of them being Krampus.
Excellent. And so this location in Denver, it's just called 13th Floor Haunted House, correct? That's like the proper name of it.
Correct. So that's where I was this past weekend at 13th Floor Haunted House, which is in Denver. So there's multiple 13th Floor haunted houses that we own in the different cities I listed. Not every location we had was open for Krampus, just the 7 I said. But we were excited to see everyone come out who did.
Is Denver the original location?
Great question. So 13th Floor Entertainment Group started in two locations. One of them was Denver, and that Chris Stafford and Warren Kennard started 13th Floor in Denver, and they teamed up with John Love and Daniel McCullough, who were from Austin, Texas, and had the House of Torment show there. These four gentlemen got together and said, "Hey, like we're really awesome at making haunted houses." That's probably not what they would say, but this is my version of this story. They're like, "We're awesome at making haunted houses. This is so much fun. Let's bring awesome Halloween to people all over the country, maybe someday even the world." And started building haunted houses all over the country and acquiring some haunted houses as well. So we are the biggest Halloween entertainment group in the country, bringing the most Halloween across America.
I love that. So, at what point, obviously, you're knocking it out of the park with the Halloween season, but at what point was it where 13th Floor Entertainment Group said, "Hey, we got to get in on this Christmas season and beyond"?
So it was about 9 years ago was the first time that we had Krampus. So as the company was growing, we were employing more and more full-time staff members, and it does take a lot of time to prepare these large-scale haunted houses, but we also, had a lot of passionate, dedicated artists and performers and operators on our team. So the owners thought, let's see if we could continue the Halloween outside the parameters of the September, October months, and said, what could we do around Christmas? Now, Christmas traditionally is a time of cheer, laughter, bringing joy, but there is a darker history to Christmas. And so we tapped into the story of Krampus, which really lends itself well to scaring people in a high startle, high throughput Halloween setting.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I know there are many books on it. Many of them sit on my shelf, kind of the dark side of the winter holidays, because traditionally it was, it's the death season, right? It's when crops are dying and it's hard to live back in the days where we didn't have, electricity and heat and all that stuff. So it was a very, very dark season. If you even think of Christmas carols, like there'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. There's just scary is innately part of Christmas, even though we really don't think of it that way in the 21st century. But there's plenty of scary Christmas tales out there. Talk to me a little bit more about the story of Krampus, just in case anybody tuning in isn't super familiar.
Okay, well, I'm not a historian, but I will tell you the story of Krampus goes back to ancient times. It predates Christianity.
Mm.
So, Krampus, my understanding is what sort of came from some Norse traditions tying into the Norse gods. And that, yes, this was sort of beast, hooved, horned beast that would come and bring fear to towns, so that people would behave well. And that if children were not doing that, he would either beat them with a stick or put them into his basket on his back and bring them down to the other world. Now, when the Christians came around, he had too many, they were concerned about the fact that Krampus kind of looks like the devil, right? The way that the Christians depict the way that the devil looks with horns. So we sort of saw Krampus fall off of some of the Judeo-Christian civilizations storylines around Christmas. And we started to see a little more about, of course, about Jesus Christ, and then some of the commercial entry of Santa Claus, which has some Germanic traditions. Now, some of the Germanic countries did start to reintroduce Krampus as, at times, either Santa's sidekick. Santa was the good guy, giving all the well-behaved children gifts. And then Krampus was taking care of the bad kids. So Krampus coming, he's got these hooves. He looks like a beast. He's got these giant horns. He's known for hurting people and he's scaring people into being good. Well, that's perfect for a haunted house setting. So it seemed natural that 13th Floor would adapt the Krampus story into the haunted house. And of course, since then we've seen popular retellings of Krampus, modern retellings. I know a friend of mine, Michael Dougherty, film director, he has a retelling of Krampus, really popular with Adam Scott, actor, really fun film. But so people are familiar with Krampus now. So we enjoy bringing it to life at 13th Floor every year for about the last 9 years now.
I love how you preface that by saying, I'm no historian, and then you just like on all these fun facts about Krampus. I think you have a little more knowledge on the subject than you're giving yourself credit for.
Well, it's like cool to think about how we compel people in society to behave and like whether it's through rewarding. And I think about that like with my haunted house staff, what compels you to behave or perform well? Like giving people a pizza party. Of course, that kind of, yay, it's exciting, versus like hitting them with a stick like Krampus, which we could never do with staff, nor would we want to. But, discipline is not received or compelling the same way. So when I think about Santa being like the icon of Christmas, it's very happy and cheery and sort of compels us to do good instead of making us scared to do good.
I'm gonna play a video here. There's no sound to this. I might just pause along the way so that we can discuss some of the stuff going on here.
Cool.
Let's see. So this is the Denver location?
So this is the Denver location, one of our flagship 13th Floor Entertainment Group shows. And what you're seeing here, we call the mansion. So the Denver location typically has 3 different houses or mazes, depending on what part you live in the country. You may call them haunted houses, you may call them mazes, but 3 different mazes within the show footprint. And this mansion is the second of the 3 mazes. So you can see here, so the mansion, I'll say it lends itself well to all different themes throughout the year. We've done a vampire themed mansion. We've done an insane asylum taking over the mansion. But here you can see it's the winter. I'm going to shout out people when I can from our team. Production manager of 13th Floor Denver, Ryan McClellan. He crafted these icicles that you can see, which look so cool, immediately making it's cold, it's wintry. So those are an overlay element that's put onto the mansion for this event. You wouldn't see that in October. And then, of course, we've gone to town. One of our team members, Bones, he's decorated with lights everywhere. We still have the Halloween flair. You can see there's some jack-o'-lanterns on the Christmas tree on the left, as well as on the front fence there. But everything you're seeing is an overlay on the structure that's typically there for the Halloween season.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned how this location typically has 3 haunted houses, and this mansion really lends itself to the holidays. And sure, when these were probably initially created, that wasn't the thinking behind it. It was like we're just creating a haunted house for Halloween. But now that the haunt industry really has become a year-round thing, especially in certain parts of the country, is that taken into consideration if you're building a new location? Like, hey, let's make sure one of these mazes are adaptable.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's taken into consideration for seasonal events. Also, it's taken into consideration for, every year you want to have people, most haunted houses have guests visit every other year, right? Some big fans come to the same haunted house every year. But if you have a couple great haunted houses in your area, you may go to 13th Floor one night, and then you may end up going to Nashville Nightmare another. So we want to be able to change our themes regularly. So something like a mansion lends itself to many horror stories. Similarly, the third attraction or maze or house in Denver It has some sets of a town. So you see streets, you go through a forest, and you enter a cabin. So like this year, that was the story of Macabre, serial killer taxidermist. But in years past, it's also been stories about a zombie invasion. So again, that lends itself well to that. And then, yes, we do another show around Valentine's Day called Love Bites, and that's a vampire show. So when we do that show, you might enter this mansion, but it might be the mansion of Lord Tenebris, the grandfather of all vampires in that show. So we certainly are thinking about that. Now, that doesn't mean we haven't designed sets that can't be converted and learned the opposite lesson. Like, we have some of our shows have like a giant pirate ship that can only lend itself to so many storylines, but that doesn't mean we don't think it's beautifully scenic and valuable. We just might not use that section of the attraction for a seasonal event.
You know what's so interesting about this? I was literally just like a week ago interviewing somebody from Disney Live Entertainment who did this sort of thing for the Disney parks, Disneyland specifically, and he did several Christmas overlays for their attraction. So like It's a Small World Holiday and Haunted Mansion Holiday, where Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas takes over. And he was talking about the exact same thing on obviously like a much, much bigger scale when it comes to a Disney theme park. But even he was like, we can't do a Christmas version of Pirates of the Caribbean, but we can for Haunted Mansion. Like we can make that work. So it's the same thing on a different scale, which is really kind of fascinating.
It's similar and it's interesting because I'm sure just on this call right now, there's probably people who are thinking, I can make Pirates Christmassy, but somehow both 13th Floor Entertainment Group and Disney has decided that's a difficult task. But next year, we're going to see Christmas pirate adventures everywhere, Jeff.
Well, to be fair, the Pirates Dinner Adventure does do a Christmas show, and I've seen Santa Claus in a trampoline during that. Now, whether or not it's successful, I'll leave it up to people who attend. But yeah, that it is interesting.
I don't know why. I just picture pirate Christmas being pretty sad. Like a bunch of pirates drinking rum. They're like talking about their woes. They're looking at all their treasure. Like they already steal all the gifts they want, right? Like, I don't know.
Here's the thing that you and I know that perhaps some people don't, is that just by putting a Santa hat on it doesn't make it a Christmas show. And I think that that's a mistake that a lot of places make, right?
True.
Love this hallway. What is this? This is awesome. A coffin-shaped hallway.
Yeah, this was brand new at 13th Floor Denver this Halloween. So this is a new entrance into the second house. So you kind of walk through just prior to this, you're walking through underground catacombs, and then you enter through this coffin hallway to make your way into the haunted house. So here you've seen our team has lined the inside of the coffin with both garland and red lights. So even something like a long shaped coffin hallway leading you to your doom can still be made Christmassy.
I love it. Sorry, this thing keeps going back to the beginning when I start. Well,
It's super
some
cool. And it's like
animatronics.
right when you're looking at all the lights, or you go to grab your honey's hand for a second and you're like, oh, bam, that's exactly when we're going to start. It'll scare you. So,
Look
what?
at that guy. He got scared. He got legit scared.
Yeah, that's Krampus on a bungee lean out right there. Um, yeah. Oh, this is great footage. I haven't even looked at all this. Oh, Frosty.
This is brand new this is like literally this past weekend
Yeah,
footage.
yeah, that's one of our actors, Joseph, over there. Oh yeah. Oh no, this was a great show. I mean, I think what's so special about Krampus is that you're taking a lot of guests come out who love scary, who love Halloween, but we're bringing them something most people hopefully have experienced Christmas for most of their lives, right? Growing up, you have childhood memories as Christmas, and maybe your rebellious stage as a teenager, you got into some shenanigans for Christmas, and then you make Christmas memories with as you become an adult and make your own family as an adult. But I think what we do at Krampus is we take a lot of these memories and we turn them on their head. So where you think of something like, oh, an adorable elf who's like introducing you to Santa to come take your photo. Here you could see an elf here, like popping out and scaring you in this bedroom scene where it's something that's typically cute, and then you hear people scream from the startle scare, but then they smile and they laugh. So I think there's something really special about this event and the holiday season and bringing the scares to people. And, it's special for us as haunters. And I think it's feels like we're the ones giving a gift to the guests.
Yeah, it's really true, like the whole laughter part of it. And I think that's one thing that people don't necessarily get or always remember is 95% of the time, it's pretty rare where you have somebody so scared and out of control that like they're not having fun, right? 95% of the time, there's the scream immediately followed by the laugh. And that's what
Yeah.
we're going for.
Right, exactly. I mean, I always say that we're an entertainment company that's using fear-based entertainment. Fear is the vehicle that we're using to entertain people, but it has to be balanced. And I talk about that, like the balance of scare versus startle versus spectacle. You want to have a mix of all those three things to kind of put together the ultimate haunted house experience. So I love when I see pictures of people smiling because it means they're having a good time. Like we want to scare people, but this isn't like, our goal is not to make people so afraid that they go home and they're afraid they can't sleep. Like that is not the lingering experience we want them to have. We want them to say, that was awesome. That was so fun. I was scared and it's thrilling, but they know they're in a safe space.
I want to repeat something you just said for anybody who's watching and trying to like work in this industry or already does. You said scare, startle, spectacle. Those are the three ingredients, and they have to be balanced.
Right. So that's this is a theory, a haunted house design theory. Is it okay if I talk about it briefly, Jeff?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I learned it from Robbie Parsons Laprie. May she rest in peace. I met her when she was running Busch Gardens, Hollow Scream in Tampa. She one of my mentors, and she told me about the Fright Triangle theory. But I've heard other haunters talk about this too, so I don't know who was the originator. But the idea of the Fright Triangle theory is you have three prongs in designing a haunted house. You have the startle. That's the thing that makes you jump. That can be done by an animatronic. It can be done by an actor, but it's the actual thing that makes you jump. You have spectacle. These are things that are larger than life. Spinning tunnels, someone on stilts, something that you would never see in your everyday life, something spectacular, a brightly lit room. It could be blue, dripping icicles everywhere as you walk through a blue laser swamp, which is one of our Krampus scenes. That's spectacle, right? And then the third component here we're going to talk about is story. So the story, what's happening? Why am I here? What's going on? And that story gives a context for the spectacle and the startle. And some people say the startle is the most important. And some people say, no, the story, we have to start with the story. Well, I personally think with design, I think all are equally important when you're scaring so many people like we do all over the country at 13th Floor Entertainment Group. I think the three components are equally important. And I like to think, you give a little bit of something to everybody. If you have a story that connects why their startles happening and why things look spectacular. But you can't just focus on one of those prongs. So certainly important concept of haunted house design that we incorporated all of our shows, including Krampus.
I have an opinion on that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I feel like the story element is almost more important for the creators of these things than the actual guests when it comes to haunted house. When it comes to theme park ride, theater, etc., I think story is like key. But when it comes to haunted house, traditional haunted house, we're not talking like a delusion here or something. people are so, going through it so quickly. And the story is what really leans into like details that 99% of people only pick up subconsciously, which is important and great. But it's, to me, story for haunted house creators, it's more important for the creator than the guest. Any thoughts?
Yes, I would agree with that. The story drives us as artists. You know, the story gives us a reason of what color should we paint this wall, right? The story is the path. The story helps us when we create characters. Why is there an ice elf and why is Jack Frost in this scene? That's the story certainly guides us. Um, when there's been some years of Krampus, it's not the same show every year, it changes every year, where we started with story and we had like a poem where you would hear about Krampus and how he was coming to terrorize all the children in your neighborhood. And it was sort of an approach almost Charles Dickens like we had a Scrooge looking character holding open a giant book, reading this poem, and that would set the tone as you enter. Now, to your point, 5 out of 6 people in that group were so scared, looking around the corner, waiting to see what would happen as that story was being told, that they may not have even heard it, because we did have a big startle scare at the end of the poem, right? That sent you moving forward through the haunted house. But there are a few people who really enjoy that. And I think for people who love that, this year at 13th Floor Entertainment Group, at a lot of our shows, we had some behind the scenes tours. And those tours often tell you more about the story. Or, of course, if you spend time reading on the website, you will learn more about the story. But for most guests, they're just receiving it as live entertainment. And when they think of haunted house, they think of startle and spectacle. Um, and I think if you lose sight of those two things because you're so beholden to carrying out the story, your show will be less impactful. And I talk about that. I say that's when haunters are just designing for other haunters. They want to
Yeah.
impress their colleagues, which I always want to impress my colleagues, but I also have tens of thousands of guests who are my paying customers, that those are the ones that I really I'm beholden to giving a great show. So that's why I think all three of those components of a Fright Triangle cannot be ignored.
Yeah, and I would agree. Like, even if it's the 10% that really, really get and dive into the story and do the research on the website and stuff beforehand, like, to me, that's great. 10% of those people just had a phenomenal experience above and beyond what the other 90% did.
Mhm.
And to me, that makes it worth it. But just this conversation about story actually leads really nicely into the fact that you mentioned the Krampus show does change year after year. You said you look at them as chapters, and this year was kind of a culmination, correct?
Correct. So there's been different chapters, different years. So I'd say like in 13 Floor's book of Krampus, we've had different chapters and different characters who've been introduced throughout the year. Like I mentioned, Jack Frost one year sort of came on the scene, and that was a really cool character that opened up a creative door for us to make a lot more areas blue and bring in a lot of icy blues and whites into our costumes, into our makeup looks. Um, and he's playful. Like, for example, this year, um, in Nashville Nightmare, I know they had a Jack Frost's Ice Throne. So that's also an interactive component where guests could go sit in the ice throne and take pictures. Um, and then we've had other evil elves. Like one year, we had a year where there was an evil elf takeover. So lots of different kinds of elves. And, you might think that all elves are small with pointy ears. Well, what about a giant, oversized elf who's approaching you in a very thin, narrow hallway, and you do not know how you're going to get out of that hallway? That's the type of elf that's pretty spectacular. You did not think you were going to see that or elf that's on stilts coming from above, getting great startle scares. We've seen characters like We have characters like the gingerbread man, which some of those characters where you think, it's almost like a mascot costume. We don't get to do that a lot in our warmer climates for Halloween because it's so hot. But we do that 13th Floor Denver. We do that in some of our other Krampus shows. It might have to wear an ice vest underneath the full costume, but sometimes you can't even tell. You think it's a prop, and then that gingerbread man runs at you and will say something absurd like, don't touch my gumdrop buttons. And it's pretty funny, that's a Shrek reference. But again, we want that startle and that laugh. Yeah, here you can see some really cool. This is again Ryan, 13th Floor Denver, put together Krampus's sleigh here of some sort of demented reindeer. This prop that's on the right up front, this is I'm gonna Rib FX. This is the Drowned God prop that's got a Christmas makeover with a red nose. He's become Rudolph for Krampus. And then you have a Beastcraft animatronic skeleton, some Ghost Ride bodies. So, and then Krampus in the back controlling them all. So this is a photo op. We want people to be able to take these pictures, show their friends that they came. They might not send out the same holiday card that you or I would. Oh, I don't know what your holiday cards look like, Jeff, but this is an opportunity. We also have an interactive naughty or nice chair at some of our shows where you sit down and press a button and the chair will determine if you're naughty or nice. So that's pretty fun too. I've seen some cute Instagram videos of people predicting what their friend would get, and it's these playful holiday tropes that we all know, but in a horror setting at 13th Floor.
Perhaps too soon to be asking this question, but if you've reached like the culmination of Krampus this year, you've gone through the different chapters, is there a plan for next year? Are you starting over? Are we moving on from Krampus? Can you say?
I don't think we're moving on from Krampus, but I don't want to say, one of our folks in our creative team, Faust from House of Torment, he's been integral in writing the chapters of Krampus to come. So, sorry, Faust, you might get hit up about this anytime soon, but I can't say that Krampus is going away. I think holiday events are here to stay. We do have some ideas how this holiday event could always pivot in the future. But for now, it's certainly a fan favorite.
I love it. Of course, characters are a big part of it. We've been talking a bit about it. I know you have a kind of fun story about Krampus and the guest interaction with the basket, but I'd love to just talk more about kind of character development in general and how you take these, sweet Christmassy characters and say, nope, here's the horror twist we're going for.
Okay. Well, for a lot of our shows, we have certain scare sequences set up in each room already where an actor might be sort of in a scare pocket, and the typical sequence of how that room works for what I should say optimized scare sequence is they're in the pocket, they wait till a few people enter the room, they come out, get a startle scare, maybe trigger a prop to go off, and then get one more scare or deliver a line before the person walks out of the room. So we're utilizing the same scare sequences for the most part, but I think we also have some of these characters like this zombie Santa that you see in the bottom corner here. When he's standing still, most people will think that is a static prop. So there's some different camouflage scares where you walk in the room and you don't know where the scare is coming from, and then the actor comes to life and can startle you. So I think as far as development goes, there's really been a lot of time over the years and putting together these different characters. We have sort of a demented jester style elf that you see here on the right. That character is a line roamer, so they have the ability to talk with guests. You can see they do have a lot of blood on their teeth right there, but we want to make sure that our characters that talk are in makeup versus masks. Like that looks like a mask, but that is makeup with prosthetics. And we want to make sure they can articulate if they have a storyline to tell. Sometimes they talk to guests before they go in, warn them about Krampus, tell them to keep their eyes out for anything like we have some secret bars inside of our haunted houses and they give them tips. So there's some fashion versus function issues here as well.
Very cool. And when it comes to, you mentioned, I think you said there were 7 locations that did Krampus, right, this past weekend.
Mm.
When that decision is made, you obviously have more than 7 haunts around the country. Is it basically simply come down to whether or not you're in a permanent space versus like Southern California where it's temporary? Or are there any permanent locations that aren't doing this for some reason?
Um, There's, for the most part, it has to do with where we have permanent spaces, but there are some of our shows that haven't done Krampus. For example, we have a permanent location in San Antonio, Texas, 13th floor, and we haven't done it down there. But we do our other 2 Texas shows. So sometimes actors from one of our shows will go to another because, they can't wait to act again. I know at 13th Floor Chicago, we have both 13th Floor Chicago and then just outside Chicago, we have Joliet Haunted Prison. And we haven't brought Krampus there yet. It also is a cold, unheated prison that just would not be a pleasant experience. But many of the actors from that haunted house come to 13th Floor Chicago and are just excited. 13th Floor Chicago had over 60 actors in the Krampus show this year. And I wanted to give them a fun shout out. Something people might not think about with haunted houses is like, oh, we're tapping into all the senses. Like you and I have been talking about visual, of course, what you see, sight, and what you hear. We haven't talked too much about music, but you would imagine there's the startling sounds of the actors. 13th Floor Chicago this year used 9 different scents, smells throughout their show. And I thought that's really cool because that plays with your mind. Like I know they had some pine tree scents, but also gingerbread scents. We're like, gingerbread. And that taps into sort of that joy response, that comfort feeling. But then you walk into a mangled kitchen where evil gingerbread men have taken over and are destroying it and are on top of severed heads. Like they are cooking humans in this kitchen. The gingerbread are doing that. So that's what I mean about taking these Christmas traditions and turning them on their head. So we're really trying to think out of the box of how can we tap into that Christmas nostalgia. And I love how Chicago did that. And some of our other shows, I'm sure, did that, but I know Brian Kopp, who's the market manager of Chicago, told me he was excited about all 9 this year.
That's awesome. Folks, I do want to remind you, if you have a question for Amy, be sure to put the question in the Q&A option that there is, not the comment section. Feel free to do that. We'll try and get some at the end of the conversation here. So yeah, I know there we talked about a little something, me in Southern California here, I'm a little jealous because although 13th Floor does a lot here for Halloween, we had what, 4 things. We have LA Haunted Hayride, Queen Mary's Dark Harbor, which I know is your baby, and we had Magic of the Jack-o'-lanterns and Delusion. But those aren't really permanent locations so much. So I'm a little envious here in Southern California. Do you have any potential good news for me that you can maybe talk a little bit about?
Well, I'm going to tell you 2 things, but
Okay.
one of them you do know about, which this isn't Christmas, but we are putting on 13th Floor Entertainment Group's putting on Nosferatu. We're bringing that to life. I think tonight, unfortunately,
Tonight's
it's
the
the
last
last
night. Yeah.
night. But that is something awesome we've been able to do in partnership with the film and the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, bringing components of that to life with the 13th Floor team and the creators of Delusion. And that comes out on Christmas Day. But we're not currently doing off-season events in California, partially again because LA Haunted Hayride, awesome event, legendary event in LA. It's at Griffith Park. That's a setup takedown event. Magic of the Jack-o'-lanterns in LA is also a setup takedown event. We did just embark, pardon the ship pun, not pardon, We did just embark on a multi-year event for Queen Mary's Dark Harbor in Long Beach, California. So that's a multi-year partnership. So I am hoping that maybe we can bring something outside of Halloween to Queen Mary in the future, but that's all I can say at this time.
That would be awesome. I would love that. And it's interesting you mentioned Nosferatu opening on Christmas Day, because that's another thing that, once again, we're in the joyful Christmassy season, but like it is a big season for horror movies. Many horror movies hit January, February, Christmas Day this year, and they do well. Scream is like my favorite horror franchise, and that was a December movie and before Christmas. And it's really interesting. Like people want it year round, it seems like, and this time of year it does well.
It's, well, something we know about haunted houses is that fear, uh, fear, while you think it can be isolating in an entertainment setting, people are scared at a haunted house. They're holding on to each other. They're making memories. They're laughing. They're nervous. Like they're holding on silently, waiting to see what's going to come around that corner. And then it scares them. And like that level of anticipation brings people together. And then that moment of the actual startle, it's like a release. And then you feel, oh, you relax for a second. You get closer to that person again. It's a really bonding experience walking through a haunted house. And I think similarly with horror films, people want to cozy up. I remember my mom was so scared at horror movies. She always used to grab my knee or my brother's knee or my dad's knee, and my knee would hurt so bad by the end. This was like once I was a teenager, obviously not while I was a child, but like my knee would hurt and she would just grip it in fear. So I think there are a lot of people who, they wake up Christmas morning, they open some presents and have whatever their Christmas tradition is. And then after that, they're like, let's all go to the movies. So I'm hoping that people, are excited about Nosferatu and some of the other movies, or maybe they just cozy up on the couch, but I'm certainly excited to watch some horror movies this holiday season.
I'm hearing very good things about Nosferatu. I have not seen it yet. I did go to the experience, the 13th floor experience last night, and it was awesome. Such a cool location and fantastic people working on it. So I love that. But you did mention the scary nature of things, but sometimes people actually, whoop, did I jump ahead? Here we go. Sometimes people don't want the scary, and 13th floor Christmas events kind of offer that up a bit as well, right?
Yeah, they're both our Christmas events and our Halloween events. We're running, we run large scale attractions and we want to have a little something for everybody in the Halloween season, and that goes for the same at Krampus. And so here you're seeing we have our fire pits out so people can make s'mores, sort of, a nice holiday tradition. When I was in Denver this last weekend, it was pretty chilly. So people were excited to come sit by the fire pits, have a s'more, grab some hot cocoa. A lot, not all of our locations, but a lot of our locations do have liquor licenses. So I know this weekend, many of our locations you could spike your hot cocoa or spike a hot cider. Poison apple hot cider, I think was one of the names of one of the drinks in Denver. But there's a chance for everybody to have a good time. Most people still go through the show and get scared, but it's always nice to warm up with a little something comforting after you've put yourself through an intentional anxiety inducing experience.
The intentional part is what makes it fun, right? It's when the anxiety comes and you didn't do it to yourself. That's when it's no fun. But let's take a peek at this video as well. There's no sound on this one, but I just love the footage that has come out of these haunts. And as you said, these are standing sets that can remain up year round, which is great for anybody who hasn't been in this industry. Putting up and tearing down a temporary set for just a Halloween season, it's a ton of work. And to be able to leave it up and deck it out for the holidays is just so great. And I love that you guys are able to do that.
I mean, yeah, a lot of our haunted houses utilizes scares both from actors and special effects. For example, animatronics, air cannons, those are perfect when you think there's nothing in the room, and all of a sudden an air cannon shoots your legs and then makes you start running again. In order to set all that up temporarily, it would be an astounding amount of work to run pneumatics, to run airlines. So the fact that we already have all of that in place, really gives us an opportunity to spend time decorating for the holidays and then let the startles that we know are embedded into the main skeleton of the show do their job. So yeah, it looks really good. I'm so
I
proud
mentioned
of
it.
them.
Oh, is that's the Jack Frost's character there?
Yep.
That was a where was he? Right there, right?
Yeah. And Jack Frost, obviously, a sort of a famous character. And there's playful things we've done like snowball fights between elves, and you can throw, just cotton balls across through the path, and as long as you're not throwing them at heads, if it hits somebody, you're not upset. And it's like, again, it's playful. But once you're looking to your right to see the snow elf throw the snowball, that's exactly when Jack Frost is going to come out and get that startle scare.
Tell the folks the story you told me about Krampus in the in the basket.
Okay, so Krampus, there's lots of different versions of Krampus, but one of our primary versions of Krampus has a giant hump on his back because we don't want him just to look like it's a normal person walking around with a mask on. So we want to change their form. So we have a hunch that we've built into the back end of their costume, and then they have a cloak over that. So one of our actors is in this costume, and then on top of that hunch has a lightweight wicker basket, like I said earlier on the show, where Krampus would, in theory, put children to take them down to the underworld. Well, one of our former actresses came this weekend to Denver, Christina, and brought her son Carlos, 4-year-old, brave little 4-year-old. Most of our guests who come through a haunted house are 7 and up. We recommend 12 and up, but he went through the whole show and loved it, wanted to go through again. I was having a s'more with them, and Krampus came over, and he wanted to jump into Krampus's basket, and we're looking at the basket and thinking about how cool that would actually be to have this willing 4-year-old like in the basket, but we are like, there's no way this basket, like the basket might hold, but the hunch on his back is totally gonna fall through. Like the whole thing would have been a disaster, although adorable. So no, the child cannot really jump into Krampus's basket. And that's not a typical thing that's gonna come up in Halloween, like so it's a pretty special Krampus moment.
Well, talk to me a little bit about how obviously the biggest season is the Halloween season. It's Christmas time and other off-season events bring in different crowds, typically, well, definitely much smaller crowds. But with a smaller crowd, it allows for more interactivity, right? It's there, I don't see this in 13th floor so much, but there's a lot of Halloween events, massive ones that where the conga line, the infamous conga line that no guest really enjoys, where it's just people nonstop congaing through a maze. That's just because the season's so popular, because they're letting in so many people. Off season, you definitely don't get that. It gives you more room to play. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, for Krampus, it's a less attended event than, for example, like a Saturday night in October, right? So we have a little more room to put in between groups. So you and your partner or you and your family may be the only people in your group. That's pretty unique. Most haunted houses you'll go through of the scale of something like 13th floor, you're going to be in an average group of 6 to 8, and you're going to be mixed in with strangers you don't know. And then what you're mentioning that we hope never happens, but can inevitably happen, is if someone's walking much slower than everyone else. There's human variables where everyone will kind of get backed up into what we call a conga line. That's much less likely to happen at one of these events because we like see less people come out and we really get a chance to make sure that they have more time in the haunted house and feel more isolated. We do venture into interactivity more with our event Love Bites, a Valentine's haunted house. Um, that is an event where we do allow guests to step inside the story, and sometimes they have to either wear cloves of garlic to repel the vampires, or it's fake garlic, it's not real, in case you're like worrying that you're going to smell because you're on a date or something. But we've also had, challenges where people need to figure out a certain puzzle in order to get an amulet, and then they might have to take an amulet to hold up to repel the vampires, which could then trigger an effect of sounds and lights and a sequence. So we do get to be a little more interactive in some of our off-season events in ways that we can't do in our primary shows in the main season. So, if you think an off-season event is less than is not going to be as strong as a Halloween show, I would urge you to go check one out because you actually get to see things that you wouldn't in Halloween, and you may be able to have a more intimate experience, with just you and your friends.
That's a really, really good point. I hadn't thought about, but yeah, it's probably a quote unquote better experience in the sense that you'll get more individual playtime, I'm sure, with characters and stuff like that. So it's very cool. Tammy asks in the Q&A, Amy, how did you get your start in the industry? I have a feeling this is going to be a big answer, but let's hear it.
Uh, well, when I very first started, I was a kid making haunted houses in my friend's basement. So it wasn't the start in the industry, but where I started as an actress was at a haunted house that was called Terror Behind the Walls at Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. Now there is a Halloween event there called Halloween Nights at Eastern State. That is awesome. But Terror Behind the Walls was a massive haunted house inside of a prison. I started as an actress there just to make some extra money. I was doing an AmeriCorps program, which you only get a living stipend. So I thought, hey, I'll go act at this haunted house. I had like a musical theater background from when I was younger, not from college or anything like that, but just when I was growing up. And I loved it. I loved scaring people. I loved entertaining people. And of course, for those of you that know me, won't be surprised I quickly got put onto a radio, walkie-talkie with an earpiece, and then was asked, okay, in addition to scaring people, can you be the person who moves people into this section of the haunted house, which we used to call line beasts, because you're beasting a line. So I was a scary prison guard who would greet people at Eastern State Penitentiary and send them into a haunted house called the 13 Rooms. Which is kind of funny that my first maze was 13 rooms. And now I ended up at 13th floor. I never actually made that connection. But yeah, I started off in Philadelphia, worked there as an actress, took on more responsibility as a line beast, then became an assistant, what was called zone manager of an attraction. I became a manager of attraction. I became the following season the show manager. And eventually I became the creative director of that haunted house. I loved working there. Then I moved over to the Queen Mary. And then I started working for 13th Floor Entertainment Group and have gotten to carry out Halloween all over the country.
That's fantastic. You basically you climbed the ladder. You did the dirty work and
Mhm.
climbed, climbed, climbed. I love it.
I can't see if that's a Tammy I know, but I'll say thank you because I know two Tammys and it might be one of them. So thanks, Tammy, for the question.
There we go. So let me see if I can get this big. No, it's going to make me go from the beginning. That's okay. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and I messed it up. Let me try this one more time. Boom. These are the websites you should check out, learn more about 13th Floor Haunted House.com, 13thfloor.com. If you go to that bottom one, 13thfloor.com, that shows you everything that 13th Floor Entertainment has going on. So I highly recommend it. Folks, as Mina mentioned, Amy, thank you so much for being part of this. Really, really appreciate it. You're so much fun. Folks, as Mina mentioned at the top of this, this is the final installment of these haunted experiences. Been doing it all year. If you tuned in for just today or many others, thank you so much. This is where you can follow me. This is where I announce the stuff at Jeff DePaoli on all social media, mostly active on Instagram. And thank you to Mina and all the libraries. And there's an announcement coming for you folks in the Northeast, in the New England area, that I should be announcing early in the new year. So be sure to follow me there. And happy holidays to everyone.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Amy. First of all, thank you so much for this. Like I said, bringing in Krampus at this point was perfect.
Awesome. I'm so glad. It's been an honor.
Excellent. And Jeff, it's been super fun working with you this last year. And I think we'll be talking again about doing something interesting or different for next year. We had talked about a few things, but I do appreciate all of the work that you've got done for this series that has been really special for me personally, even though I'm a weenie. I'm gonna get
Mina, question. Did you go to anything a little more scary than you typically would this past Halloween because you were inspired by this series at all? I know you actually put together something for the library, right? A haunt?
Yes, we actually had a haunted trail in the library in October for our teens, and it was really fun. I mean, we had dead bodies and a surgery thing, and oh, it was great. I think you saw a video of it. Yeah, I did not because I am a weenie, but I have a whole list of things to look into for next year, and I will. I'm definitely gonna. You have inspired me.
I've
Excellent. I
got,
love it. And I hope
yeah, and for your library, like if you have any books that you'd be willing to use as a prop, you can kind of glue them open and use fish wire and hang them from the ceiling, and they look like they're floating, and it's super cool.
Ooh.
I do
I've
that.
done that before. We took some books, we opened them up and we put like funky candles in them, like not real ones, so we didn't burn them, but yeah, it looked like there was just like dripping onto the books. It was
Like
amazing.
that gothic feel.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. So yeah, I will. People can keep an eye out for me. I'm gonna be doing
awesome.
it. So yeah, I hope you all have some wonderful holidays, and I look forward to Halloween all year next year, really.
Awesome.
Same.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good
Yeah.
night, everyone.